have done lately, down into the single figures, particularly across the far southwest of England, Wales and parts of Northern Ireland as well. Now, where the rain is still lingering tomorrow morning across northern areas of Scotland in particular, it will be a bit of a murky start to the day, so a bit of a different feel tomorrow morning compared to today. Some mist and fog around, particularly over the hills and across coastal areas too. Further south across parts of northern England, there will be some brighter spells, but still some mist and fog first thing, and it's across the south and west parts of Wales as well, but we'll see the best of the sunshine first thing on Saturday. That's not to say there won't be sunshine elsewhere throughout the weekend. Saturday is actually looking fairly dry and bright once that cloud does lift up after first thing. So plenty of sunshine to come. The cloud will come and go, but it will still feel fairly pleasant out there as the winds are relatively light, particularly across eastern areas of the country. So temperatures climbing to around 13, 14 or 15 degrees, a little bit cooler than it has been lately, but still fairly mild for the time of year. And that could allow, with clear skies, temperatures to fall away to allow a grass frost across the east on Sunday morning. But elsewhere, the next batch of wet weather across the west will arrive through Sunday, bringing some potentially quite spells of quite heavy rain. And that will likely become a little bit more widespread through Monday and Tuesday. And although there's a risk of frost overnight for some areas, it's staying mild by day. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. There's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 the best year yet. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. And we'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, where I speak up for you, the forgotten majority. Now, coming up on tonight's show, mistaken prisoner releases are skyrocketing. David Lammy's career is in crisis. 1,000 more migrants have crossed the Channel, and Labour are set for their worst election result in more than a century. Britain appears to be broken, but how can we fix it? We'll be debating that tonight. As the BBC is mired in two separate trans rows, is Boris Johnson right that their Director General needs to explain or resign? We'll be talking about that BBC bias. We'll also bring you Charlie Peters' GB News exclusive as the grooming gang scandal worsens further. Is Nigel Farage right to slam the dither and delay around the national inquiry into the rape gangs? And in Matt in Conversation, our final segment, as the sectarian fallout from the Aston Villa-Maccabi fixture continues, is this division a worrying snapshot of Britain's future? We'll be debating that tonight, right here. Friday Night with Matt Goodwin starts right now. Now, I'll also be joined tonight by my panel, assistant editor at The Spectator, Madeline Grant, and political commentator Kai Wilshaw. As ever, I want to know your views tonight. Of course, you can reach us on gbnews.com/you'll say. You can reach us on X, as always, at GB News. But now it is time for the news.
Matt, thank you very much. The top stories: a foreign sex offender freed in error from Wandsworth prison has been re-arrested. Brahim Kadour Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian national, was mistakenly released from HMP Wandsworth in South London on the 29th of October. Brahim Kadour Sharif had been convicted in November last year of indecent exposure relating to an incident in March of that year. ITV News says there are reportedly currently 4 more live cases of prisoners being sought by the authorities in England and Wales after being released in error. Earlier today, Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy said he's ordered new tough release checks, commissioned an independent investigation into systemic failures, and begun overhauling archaic paper-based systems still used in some prisons. However, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch told GB News she is not confident the streets are safe.
Yes, it's complete nonsense. They blame everybody else except themselves. They are in charge right now. If someone was released last week by accident, it's their fault. It's not the fault of the people who were there 2 years ago. And right now, what I actually want to see is this man deported. We're spending too much money keeping foreign prisoners in our jails. Our party's policy now is just deport all foreign criminals. No ifs, no buts.
GB News can reveal that more than 1,100 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel since yesterday morning. It takes the total for the year so far to 38,000. Throughout yesterday, 610 migrants had arrived in UK waters and were taken to the Border Force Processing Centre at Dover Harbour. According to GB News provisional figures, 520 have arrived today. It takes the figure since yesterday morning to 1,130. 4 Labour MPs have had the whip restored. Neil Duncan-Jordan, Chris Hinchcliffe, Brian Leishman and Rachel Maskell will no longer sit as independents in the House of Commons following a review of their recent conduct, Labour sources said. The 4 MPs had on several occasions rebelled against the government in the run-up to their suspension. Their most significant rebellion was that against welfare reforms being spearheaded by ministers, which the MPs feared would harm people claiming disability benefits. Rachel Reeves has reportedly informed the spending watchdog that she intends to raise income tax. That's as splits are emerging at the top of Labour over whether to raise taxes as pressure grows ahead of the budget later this month. Deputy Leader Lucy Powell has warned that breaking Labour's manifesto pledge not to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT could damage trust in politics. And following the passing of Holocaust survivor Manfred Goldberg, the Prince and Princess of Wales have shared the following message on social media. They said, "We are deeply saddened by the passing of Manfred Goldberg. Having joined him on a visit to Stutthof, we witnessed firsthand his extraordinary strength, grace and dedication to sharing his story. His tireless work to educate young people about the Holocaust will never be forgotten." And King Charles has said the following: "It meant more to me than I can ever say to have been able to wish the fondest of farewells a few weeks ago to a truly special human being." Mr. Goldberg died at the age of 95. And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin. It's good to have you with us. Now, I want to start tonight by showing you a short clip of somebody from the greatest generation who, in a very candid moment, told the country what he really thinks about their sacrifice and the sorry state of our country today. Watch this.
What does Remembrance Sunday mean for you? What is your message?
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye there was rows and rows of white stones, all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
The sacrifice wasn't worth it. Well, he's not wrong, is he? Among many Brits today, both those who have served and sacrificed, as well as ordinary patriots fighting for Britain today, there is an overwhelming sense that our once great nation is indeed hurtling in the wrong direction. Just look at a handful of the stories that we've seen this week alone. More than 1,000 illegal migrants entered the UK in the last 24 hours. Keir Starmer says he is smashing the gangs. In fact, he is only smashing our border security. We do not know who these people are. We do not know where they're from. We do not know what they believe, and we do not know why they are here. One thing we do know is that the country is officially, according to a brand new survey this week, more divided than ever before. This is a new study by King's College with Ipsos Mori. It found that 8 in 10 Brits feel that the nation is divided. That's up 5 points on 2023. It's up 10 points on 2020. And perhaps most worryingly, a majority of respondents admitted that they do not feel proud of the country. But can we really blame them? Meanwhile, the Labour government has been skewered by the latest polling, which shows that they're on track for their worst election result in more than a century. Really bombshell polling, with some big names in cabinet projected to lose their seats. And that can hardly come as a surprise given the week that the government has just had. Another foreign sex offender was somehow mistakenly released from prison, but Justice Secretary David Lammy refused to admit this at PMQ's dispatch box 5 times before the public eventually learned the truth. Once again, we saw the police take days to apprehend the missing prisoner, and once again, they had to rely on a member of the public to tip them off. This has entirely unsurprisingly led to calls for David Lammy to resign, which is pretty hard to argue with. Our prison system seems utterly broken beyond repair, with the number of mistakenly released prisoners, which you can see on your screens right now, skyrocketing under the Labour government. And breaking tonight, we've just heard that police are searching for 4 more prisoners who have been mistakenly released. That's right. How many more are we yet to find out about? But Britain's problems clearly run deeper than our prisons crisis. The public's patience seems to be wearing very thin indeed. To discuss this prisons crisis, I now welcome to the show Conservative councillor and writer Tom Jones, who has written, Tom, thank you for joining us, who's written a very compelling piece on what he thinks is behind the release of these prisoners by accident. Tom, please enlighten us. What on earth is going on?
Thanks for having me, Matt. I think the first thing to say is that the real problem going on in our prisons is a massive overcrowding problem, but in particular, prisoners on remand. And because they're on remand, they take a lot of movement to and fro, and that places a lot of strain on prison officers. And in the last 2 years, we've seen a real change in the demographics of prison officers because the prison service has been able to recruit foreign workers. So according to FOI responses, just a touch under 2,500 foreign nationals have become prison officers in the last 3 years, which means that 20% of all new hires in the last 3 years have come directly from abroad. And that doesn't include anybody who has switched over from a previous prisoner or foreign nationals who have already got ILR.
Sorry, Tom, just to be clear, so 1 in 5 new recruits into the prison service are coming from outside the UK?
Yes, and it's significantly. The data suggests it's actually significantly higher. So about 60% of prison officer applications are from people with BAME backgrounds. Given the demographics of Britain, that suggests that there's a massive trend. I think Nigerians alone accounted for over 10% of all staff hired.
Okay, so just to be clear, are you saying that basically our inability to keep criminals in prison, our inability to basically get the system to work as it should do, may have something to do with the fact that we are increasingly relying on labour coming from overseas?
Yes, absolutely. David Shipley, who writes very well about prisons, wrote in The Spectator that some of the reports about these prison officers that we're bringing in, their quality is very varied. Some of them are obviously fantastic. Some of them have such basic grasp of English that they functionally cannot perform large segments of the job. And when you've got the highest number of prisoners on remand for the last half century, basically that's putting too much strain on these officers who simply aren't up to the job.
Right, OK. And looking forward then, this problem is probably going to get worse given the historic funding cuts, or at least restrictions to prison funding, combined with relying on more labour from overseas. Meanwhile, we have millions of Brits, by the way, who are sitting on welfare, not actually being brought into the labour market. But this problem, you think, basically is going to continue to escalate?
Yes, and I think it's actually much bigger than this. This is a problem across our public services, Matt. As you well know, the NHS is almost completely hooked on foreign labour. Situation the NHS is actually not happy with. Education is increasingly hooked on foreign labour. And I think the prisoner releases, frankly, are only a very small part of the problem. That's only the start of the problem. I'll give you an example. There was a West African prison officer, recruit, Swaleside, who apparently asked during a meeting what an acceptable level of bribe was to accept in this country. Coincidentally, 8 prison officers were arrested on corruption charges at the same prison a month later. So, this is probably the tip of the iceberg in terms of the effects of human quantitative easing on our prison system.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's Tom Jones there, and I strongly recommend you read his essay today in The Critic magazine. Thank you, Tom. Let's bring in our panel, assistant editor at The Spectator magazine, Madeline Grant, and political commentator Kai Bulshaw. Madeline, if I can come to you first. Labour all over the place when looking at the numbers that we just put on the screen. Accidental prison releases are through the roof. Is it time for David Lammy to actually resign over this? Do you think this is going to escalate to a point where he is so undermined that actually people will start to say this guy should not really be in charge of the criminal justice system?
Well, I suppose the first thing is that David Lammy is extremely new to the job. It would be a deeply embarrassing moment if so soon into taking over this particular department he were forced to resign. And, I think you could fairly say that he inherited a very difficult situation. Where I think David Lammy is seriously at fault and made a terrible blunder this week is that he appeared to mislead the House in being asked 5 times about this potential escape and refusing to confirm it. Not explicitly lying, but having the opportunity to set the record straight and not doing so. This has incurred the wrath of MPs across the House, in fact, because this is not the way that MPs are supposed to go about things, let alone ministers. And it just speaks to a kind of cack-handed handling of things, the idea that he thought that he could just bluster his way through it and that the problem would go away. As is so often the case with this government, the bigger problem comes with the apparent cover-up or the not being entirely frank about the situation. There is potentially a story to tell here about the situation they inherited. I'm not sure you can keep using that excuse forever, but you cannot be actively misleading the House in the way that he did this week.
Kai Wolshaw, do you think the Labour government, the Labour Party, actually have a sense as to what the mood is really like out there in the country, the scale of frustration and disillusionment? Again, reading about people who have been accidentally released. Again, reading about migrants who have sexually assaulted British people being let back out onto the streets. Do Labour really understand the righteous fury that is actually sweeping over these islands?
Depends who you talk to, Matt. I do think that a large and growing majority of the MPs in the Parliamentary Labour Party understand what the prognosis is, i.e. this government is a government without a vision, but it's also failing to deliver on some of the key promises that it did originally make. And I think, things, yes, are really difficult, but actually they need to go faster and further and maybe be a bit more radical. But what they disagree on is how exactly to do that. There are plenty of different groupings within the Labour Party trying to figure that out now. The question is, will Keir Starmer realise that fury, as you say, that lack of vision, in time to turn things around himself, or will it have to be somebody else?
Well, one of the things that runs through a lot of these stories is the issue of immigration. And I'm just going to bring in what President Trump said today in his meeting. Let's just show you this clip.
He's been right on immigration. Look what's happened to Europe with the immigration. They have people flooding Europe all over the place, and it's hurting it. It's the crime rates are way up. A lot of bad things are happening. His crime rates are very low. They're the same as they always were, which is very little crime. He was right on immigration. They were wrong. They are flooding Europe with people from all over the world, and Europe is becoming a different place. And I tell the leaders all the time, you better stop or you're not going to have Europe anymore. It's a very dangerous thing they're doing.
Madeline Grant, Donald Trump there essentially saying Viktor Orban was right, Hungary was right, essentially also maybe Poland. Western Europe has been wrong by embracing the migration crisis. You can look at the stats, you can look at the anxiety and concern. Is President Trump right on that? Because you look at the UK here, immigration basically underpins everything we're now talking about. Terrorist attacks, sexual assaults and so on. But it seems to me that actually the Overton window, the range of acceptable discussion is moving, and it's moving in the direction of President Trump and Viktor Orban.
It certainly is. And I still find that actually much of the debate that we have in the UK about President Trump and about America focuses overwhelmingly on his personality, the fact that, you know, he's not always entirely honest, or he's not the nicest man that ever lived. And what they singularly omit from every single one of these discussions is the fact that Donald Trump was elected to do a number of things, including to tackle the completely porous border that had been allowed to exist under Joe Biden. And he's doing that very successfully, whether you agree or not. The idea of a politician being elected to do something and actually doing it is looking actually, I think, very persuasive when you're in a country where in every area of law, justice, government policy generally, it feels like no one is in control. It's quite an alarming feeling for citizens across Europe that so many of us are feeling like that, you know?
But well, sure, the left seemed to be completely lost on the immigration issue. We also had, we're going to come to it later in the show, but we had Labour in the latest polling down on 15%. I would put it to you, a big reason for that is immigration. People watching this show are saying, I've had enough. I've had enough of the porous borders. I've had enough of open borders. I've had enough of mass migration. I didn't vote for this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want Afghans to be imported into my country. I didn't ask for the small boat crisis. Labour seemed to be completely adrift.
Shouldn't have voted Boris in then if they didn't want those things.
Well, hey, I mean, I'm the last person to defend the Tory regime.
I know that. Look, I think Labour have been slow to grapple with migration because for a long time the whole left have made migration and discussion about migration, immigration specifically, as a moral issue. We're good people because we accept everyone. And suddenly they're coming to the realisation that on the scale and the kind that they see now, they've seen in the last few years, there has to be a more nuanced debate. But actually, where they're on the polling is also to do with left-wing people who are saying, I don't like Labour tacking to the right and pandering to reform. So yes, it's about immigration, but not everybody agrees with you that they should be harder and faster on reducing immigration either.
That's you look at the national polls, it's about, I would say my view is about a 70% view. About 70% of Brits would say, maybe 65, 70 Brits say lower immigration now. Now, we do have a statement, by the way, I should read this, because obviously one of the guys that was released was a convicted sex offender, Brahim Kador Sharif. Well, we do have a statement from David Lammy, and I do need to read this. We inherited a prison system in crisis, and I'm appalled at the rate of releases in error this is causing. I'm determined to grip this problem. That is why I've ordered new tough release checks commissioned by an independent investigation into systemic failures, and I've begun overhauling archaic paper-based systems still used in some of our prisons. Well, there you go. Everybody should be reassured. Still to come, as the BBC is mired in 2 separate trans rows, is Boris Johnson right that their Director General needs to explain or resign? We're going to be talking to a top expert on what on earth is going on over at the BBC. This is Friday Night with Matt Goodwin. I'll see you in 1 minute.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The Royal British Legion is launching the Poppy Appeal to raise funds to support the armed forces community.
Well, the launch will be held at Frameless, where veterans supported by the RBL will share their stories amid a spectacular, immersive poppy landscape projection.
Well, the appeal will encourage the nation to wear a poppy to send a personal message of thanks to those who serve.
Well, let's talk to our national reporter, Will Godley.
And this is all part of the Royal British Legion's fundraising, this Poppy Appeal, happening from now until Armistice Day on, of course, 11th of November, raising money for the armed forces community. They're hoping to raise £50 million to support the some 7,000 veterans, family members and armed forces. And when you were in Afghanistan, that's when your military career came to an unexpected end, wasn't it? What happened there?
So I was the point man in a foot patrol, and unfortunately I was involved in an explosion which subsequently took my hearing from my left ear, and due to that I was forced to leave the army for medical reasons.
And since then, Jason, you've been supported by the Royal British Legion. What kind of support have they offered for you?
Well, it's a vast array of support, really. It can be financial, you know, mental health. They can signpost you for different various charities and support that, you know, as veterans that we really essentially do need, you know, to rebuild our lives and get to a better point, you know, and be positive in our lives and know that we've got that hand on our shoulder when it's needed.
And I can hear you sounding a little bit emotional talking about it. What kind of a difference has that made, that support, on your life?
Oh, it's massive, you know, you can't really... It's not something you can put into words.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin. Well, the BBC is back in the headlines with yet another scandal revealed in The Telegraph today. The BBC's gender and identity correspondent, Megan Mohan, tried to block coverage of a women's rights group defending female-only spaces. Mohan, who's held posts since 2018, emailed colleagues saying her LGBT contacts had branded Women's Place UK transphobes and questioned whether the debate should be filmed at all. It follows a backlash earlier this week after newsreader Martine Croxall was found to have broken BBC rules when she changed pregnant people to women on air, live on air, complete with a smirk and an eye roll that set social media ablaze. Well, now Boris Johnson is piling on the pressure, demanding that Director General Tim Davie explain or resign after a leaked 8,000-word dossier accused a broadcaster of left-wing bias, doctoring coverage and even echoing Hamas propaganda. That is 2 trans rows and 1 political firestorm in a single week for the BBC. So has the so-called unbiased organisation finally gone full woke? Well, joining me down the line now to answer all of our questions is psychotherapist and founder of Just Therapy, expert on gender ideology, James Esses. James, thank you for joining us tonight. Firstly, just your reaction to the Martine Croxall furore, if I may. What's your instinctive read on firstly, how the organisation has managed that, but also secondly, perhaps what it tells us about the inner workings of the BBC?
Sure. In one word, embarrassment. It is utterly embarrassing that the BBC, which is meant to represent the United Kingdom and its citizens on the global stage, could behave in such a pathetic way. You know, impartiality is meant to be baked into its editorial guidelines, and it very clearly is happy to push and promote indoctrination in the form of gender ideology. I mean, Martine Croxall was essentially speaking and representing on behalf of the entire British people. You know, she was forced in a teleprompter to read the term pregnant people, and she corrected it quite rightly and quite bravely so to women. And for that now she has been chastised by the organisation. I mean, it's pathetic. I really do think that the United Kingdom is the laughingstock of the world at present.
And is that mainly because the institutions, taxpayer-funded institutions, are basically refusing to go along with the implication of the Supreme Court judgment, which said, look, you know, the basis of how we define women is biological. We're not going to keep going on with all of this gender gobbledygook anymore. But yet we've seen the universities, the BBC and others appear to sort of ignore that ruling, also, by the way, the British Medical Association, and continue to sort of impose gender dogma on everybody else. Is that essentially what's going on here?
Well, that's certainly a big part of it. I mean, we've seen the BBC essentially ignore the Supreme Court ruling as regards having single-sex toilets. And we saw in the news a week or two ago that instead of complying with those rules, they've essentially said that if there are employees who are concerned or uncomfortable with mixed-sex toilets, that they can simply work from home. I mean, that's a complete and utter fudge. So they are essentially refusing to comply with the words and the spirit of the Supreme Court judgment. Part of the problem with these organisations is that senior leaders are extremely fearful of being labelled as transphobic or bigoted. And so you've got pride and LGBT staff networks within these organisations which hold a supreme amount of power. I think that's a huge amount of what's going on here in the BBC.
So if you were advising Tim Davie, what would you be saying he should do right now? It's just said Boris Johnson has come out and said explain or resign. I mean, what should the BBC do here in order to try and regain some public confidence, some public trust? Because to be frank, where I'm sat, it doesn't look like the BBC's in a particularly good place right now.
No, it doesn't. And we already live in a low-trust society, but if we've got our national broadcaster putting out dogma and misinformation, literally, I mean, BBC Verify, which are meant to be the experts in disinformation and fact-checking, have literally referred to male rapists using female pronouns. So if people cannot trust the BBC, then it ceases to serve a purpose in my eyes. In terms of what I would advise, I take quite a strong view on this. I think that all BBC correspondents and employees should be made to sign up to a charter and to actually sign on a piece of paper whether they will adhere to institutional neutrality and impartiality as per their editorial standards. And if they don't, then they should be given the sack.
Well, indeed, and not just perhaps BBC employees, but everybody who is working for taxpayer-funded public institutions. That's James Esses there joining us, a very authoritative voice on these issues. Thank you for your time. Let's bring in the panel now. Assistant editor at The Spectator, Madeline Grant, and political commentator, Karen Wilshaw. Madeline, should people trust the BBC?
Increasingly, no. It's increasingly difficult to trust the BBC. There are still fantastic journalists who are working hard and adhering to that old impartiality that those of us who've been watching TV for decades will remember and recognise. But I think those people are increasingly in a minority, and it must be deeply annoying for them when they're trying hard to uphold those old principles and potentially some of that kind of Reithian programming that it was established to do, when they see something like, for example, the Martine Croxall furore. It seems like quite a small thing, but I actually think it tells you so much about what the thinking that's going on at the BBC. Pregnant people is not neutral language. It's a very extreme proposition that's basically asking to eradicate biological sex norms that we've had in human history until the day before yesterday. And in refusing to say that, she was basically striking out in the direction of truth. The fact that she was disciplined for that tells me everything. And I kind of worry that the BBC now is approaching a kind of irrelevance. If you've got people who are so politically motivated that they're not going after important stories, which is what this memo reveals, they have been asleep at the wheel on many important stories. Where was the BBC during the Tavistock Clinic, for example? Like, it means that they are missing the big stories, which are increasingly being broken elsewhere, like grooming gangs, GBNews, The Times, The Telegraph. They are breaking far more big stories now than the state broadcaster.
Just before I go to Kai Wilshaw, you are in the media. What would you be advising Tim Davie right now? You are in that sort of, let's say, media world. It looks pretty bad from where I'm sat. What would your advice be?
Well, on this, I would not have a kind of team of LGBT reporters, which is what seems to have happened here, that when there is reporting in any particular area, they go to this pool of kind of experts. I worry that when you set it up in that way, there will be a group of people who perhaps have their own motivations and are not representing the impartial ideal. So I would kind of end that. I would honestly... Heads need to roll. It can't operate like the civil service does, where people screw up and they just move to another department and potentially maybe hire fewer people but make them better. I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult to say.
Let me bring in Kai Wilshaw. Look, I'll just give you my honest opinion. Whenever I watch a lot of BBC content, OK, I feel like they're very down on this country. They're very down on our history. Everybody's racist. Everybody's far right. The gender gobbledygook that has already been rejected by the Supreme Court and others has basically gone mainstream. And I just feel like I'm being exposed to this political project from an institution that should be neutral. It should be impartial. And I'm paying for it as a taxpayer. I'm paying for it. So, look, I'm frustrated. How does the BBC fix this? How does it actually regain public trust?
Clearly, number one, I don't know where to really start. Look, Tim Davie shouldn't resign over these incidents that have happened in an organisation of thousands and thousands of people. The two trans row cases that you mentioned, that is a nonsense. We all know it. One is about a rogue reporter.
But it's not nonsense,
One is about a newsreader reading out something that was erroneously put from an external report. It's not BBC language. Pregnant people is not BBC-approved language. So let's dispense with that.
I just wonder why they disciplined her for it.
She was disciplined because the smirk could be seen as breaking impartiality towards actually quite a divisive debate. Now, that's obviously the wrong call, but they're nodding to the fact that lots of people can interpret that, as they did, as supporting an anti-trans agenda.
Madeleine, would you want to come back in now?
I suppose it is just a mistake, but this leaked memo reveals a much bigger, broader pattern of having ideologically motivated people on this all-important issue of the transing of teenagers, which was happening until recently. So I think that actually... No, these are not just one-off stories, you know.
Well, should we dispense with sort of journalists who are focusing on specific countries, specific women's issues, any community issues? I mean, yes, I agree that clearly the hiring of some of these people went in the wrong direction. Perhaps they were in their bubble. That's obviously an issue, and I think the BBC is in a bubble. If there's an underrepresented community... Do you just ignore that, or do you try to represent the whole country as the BBC mandated to do?
But isn't the issue with a lot of our public institutions that they are so obsessed with representing minorities that they've lost sight of the majority opinion and the majority view in this country? I'll just give you one example. Yeah. Not so long ago, the BBC ran a video which was called "What is White Privilege?" and ran it as if it was a factual statement that white privilege exists as a concept. There was no counter to that. There was no alternative video saying this is a highly contested term drawn from a very obscure academic theory, critical race theory, and it was presented on the BBC homepage as if white privilege is science, it's evidence, it's and I think a lot of people who are watching often think, actually, that is not the case at all. Well, we should add, before I go on my monologue against the BBC, the Executive Complaints Unit noted that Miss Croxall was reacting to scripting, which somewhat clumsily incorporated phrases from the press release accompanying the research, including the aged, which is not the BBC style, and pregnant people, which did not match what Dr. Mystery said in the clip which followed it. I just want to add as well that claims earlier concerning a West African officer asking about bribery at HMP Swaleside are alleged, A spokesman for Kent Police said on Friday, June the 14th, Kent Police arrested 7 people in Swale on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Officers previously arrested another person in connection with the investigation on Saturday, May the 18th, and all those arrested have since been released on bail until various dates in September. We should clear that up. But up next, we're going to be bringing you Charlie Peters' GB News exclusive as a grooming gang scandal worsens further. Is Nigel Farage right to slam the dither and delay around that rape gang inquiry? See you in 1 minute.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
An unsettled weekend to come for central parts of the Med, although Spain and Portugal will get away with plenty of sunshine. It's going to be breezy through the Canary Islands as well as Madeira, a few showers here. Less breezy for Portugal and much of Spain, but we continue to see a strong wind through eastern parts of Spain, wrapped around a low that's going to bring some heavy rain to the Balearics, and then as that moves east, it's going to bring further wet weather to Italy as well as Greece during Sunday and into the start of next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain will continue its journey eastwards overnight tonight. A little bit colder this evening in the west, but mist and fog likely for many rural areas. We've got low pressure in charge, swinging in frontal areas, which will bring some rain through the next couple of days, particularly through this evening across central areas. After a fairly bright day, it will turn much cloudier this evening across the north and east, with some drizzly rain likely overnight. Now, it'll clear up across western areas. That could allow some mist and fog to develop, but it will also allow the temperatures to fall away a little bit lower than they have done lately, down into the single figures, particularly across the far southwest of England, Wales and parts of Northern Ireland as well. Now, where the rain is still lingering tomorrow morning across northern areas of Scotland in particular, it will be a bit of a murky start to the day, so a bit of a different feel tomorrow morning compared to today. Some mist and fog around, particularly over the hills and across coastal areas too. Further south across parts of northern England, there will be some brighter spells, but still some mist and fog first thing, and it's across the south and west parts of Wales as well, but we'll see the best of the sunshine first thing on Saturday. That's not to say there won't be sunshine elsewhere throughout the weekend. Saturday is actually looking fairly dry and bright once that cloud does lift up after first thing, so plenty of sunshine to come. The cloud will come and go, but it will still feel fairly pleasant out there as the winds are relatively light, particularly across eastern areas of the country, so temperatures climbing to around 13, 14 or 15 degrees, a little bit cooler than it has been lately, but still fairly mild for the time of year. And that could allow, with clear skies, temperatures to fall away to allow a grass frost across the east on Sunday morning. But elsewhere, the next batch of wet weather across the west will arrive through Sunday, bringing some potentially quite spells of quite heavy rain, and that will likely become a little bit more widespread through Monday and Tuesday. And although there's a risk of frost overnight for some areas, it's staying mild by day. Bye-bye.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, Police Scotland failed to investigate a grooming abuse gang in Glasgow that targeted vulnerable girls in care. This is exclusive, a GB News story that's been led by Charlie Peters. Now, this comes after Nigel Farage has slammed what he calls the dither and delay surrounding the grooming gangs inquiry on the front page of today's Daily Express. Now, one of the Glasgow gang victims has spoken exclusively to our national reporter Charlie Peters about her experience amid growing calls for that inquiry into the grooming gangs in Scotland. You can see the full interview on gbnews.com. So, Charlie, another shocking revelation from the national scandal that just keeps on growing. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, our report today reveals several failures by the authorities in Glasgow when dealing with Taylor's abuse by a grooming gang. In particular, it reveals that Police Scotland visited the care home where she was staying at after her name appeared in an investigation into group-based child sexual exploitation, but they failed to interview her about that investigation. Elsewhere, we have seen from social care records exclusively reviewed by GB News that the care home described Taylor as appearing in an investigation into the child sexual exploitation by a group of. And then there are two censored words that Taylor believes are Pakistani men, and that the care home had covered up the evidence of the ethnicity of her abusers. She only found out about this having made a subject access request to the authority earlier this year, which we have reviewed and found other examples, other indicators of exploitation, including evidence of her returning late at night and being under the influence of alcohol, often going missing, often with her phone toned off. Now, Taylor, in her report with GB News, has told us that she now wants an inquiry launched into grooming gangs in Scotland, just as has been launched in England and Wales. And it comes as FOI data shows that Police Scotland does not have specific markers for group-based exploitation, which is leading many north of the border to ask, if you cannot identify the patterns of grooming gangs, how can you prosecute them?
Well, Charlie, thank you for that report. Now, here's what the victim told Charlie that she hoped to see happen. Watch this.
What I want to see happen is changes made. That is all I want. I just want to see this never happen to anyone else again. And that is all I want.
Well, to react to Charlie's latest grooming gang revelations, I now welcome Reform UK councillor Layla Cunningham to the show. Layla, a lot of people out there saying, where is this national inquiry into the grooming gangs? What is going on? Why is there this delay? They look at Scotland, they hear these reports by Charlie Peters and others. They look at London, and we just saw a couple of weeks ago similar reports, but yet it appears Sadiq Khan throwing it under the carpet. Where is this inquiry, and what can we do to force this inquiry?
I mean, Nigel was very clear that we need some sort of cross-parliamentary investigation where you can subpoena people to give evidence, because you can't fight what you can't see. It's obvious in Scotland they don't want to see what's happened, and it's not about resources, like the police intimated. It's about will. What you're seeing now is a system, the Labour Party, the council, the police, care homes, closing ranks to protect rapists. And that is a big shame, and it is a big problem, because you know that some MPs were complicit, because for me, silence makes you complicit.
But where I'm confused is, the authorities have looked over the last 30 years. They've seen this culture of silence which enabled the grooming gangs to operate to begin with. How on earth are we still in a situation where, yet again, we're learning about authorities that are essentially throwing this under the carpet and using worries over, far-right, racist, Islamophobic and so on, to basically shut down the conversation? I mean, we've just heard, for example, a retired detective in London saying he has known personally of grooming gang cases going back to 2006, but was warned not to investigate.
It's sick. And in relation to London, you had the Commissioner and Sadiq Khan clearly deny there were any, and now they are reviewing 9,000 cases. How the hell can you get 9,000 cases wrong? And they was quite clever because they stopped using the word grooming and they used multi-offender child sexual exploitation. So Sadiq Khan could look at Susan Hall in the face and say, actually, there are no grooming gangs. He was playing on terminology. It is one of the biggest stain on our country. And the problem is people just say sorry. You know, that's not what victims want. They don't want sympathy. They want justice. And the only way to get justice, I want to see MPs lose their job. I want to see councillors lose their job, social care. But no, because they're all closing ranks to protect each other.
And I don't think you're the only one. Let's bring in the panel briefly, if I can. Madeline Grant from The Telegraph. Where on earth is this national inquiry? You're closer to the politics than anybody.
Well, I mean, it seems to be in an absolute mess, and the MPs and ministers tasked with it look completely out of their depth. I don't know what's going to happen next, but it seems as if the inquiry, what there was of it so far, the progress that have been made, have been compromised by the fact that they deliberately included victims of other types of crime on the panel, and this led many survivors to say that actually this was their way of diluting the very specific racial and cultural aspects of these gangs, which is so crucial that we get to the bottom.
Kai, the Labour Party are letting these girls down again.
No, they're not. What I think the Labour government is doing, right, wrongly, is to try and do this all the right way and proper procedure is followed and do it comprehensively because they realise just how many cases they're going to uncover and how much evidence is coming out. The problem is that's the wrong way around. They need to get it started because the fact is these things are going to come out whether you like it or not. Let's be entrepreneurial about this. An entrepreneurial state, a radical state, would start this off, kick this off, and let the evidence, call for evidence take its course.
We do have a statement from the Scottish Government which says we fully recognise the devastating impact such abuse has on victims and their families. That is why we formed the Expert National Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation Strategic Group, which brings together key services and expert stakeholders, including police, Scotland and Professor Alexis Jay, to inform and improve our collective response to this horrendous form of abuse. Well, we will continue to watch this debate. Up next, we are turning to look at the aftermath of what has happened in Birmingham with a worrying sign of growing sectarianism. I'll see you in 1 minute.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin. Now, 11 people have been arrested after chaotic scenes outside Aston Villa's explosive Europa clash with Maccabi Tel Aviv. The game became a political flashpoint after Israeli fans were banned from attending over safety fears. A move even Sir Keir Starmer condemned as wrong. But after 2 years of mass pro-Palestine marches and rising tensions in the country, we are now asking, was last night in Birmingham, those shocking scenes in Birmingham, you'll find them online, were they a glimpse of Britain's sectarian future? Well, I'm joined now in the studio by Chairman of the National Jewish Assembly, Gary Mond. Gary, when you saw those scenes taking place, and there are shocking scenes doing the rounds on social media, what do you think they're telling us about modern Britain?
I can tell you what a lot of Jews are saying. They think we've breeded a generation of Jew haters. And we've seen this type of attitude has not been stopped by successive governments, either the Conservative government or the current Labour government. We see in schools Jewish children being faced with anti-Semitic abuse. We see in hospitals Jewish patients having to face nurses and doctors wearing Free Palestine badges. They know what that means. We see on campuses Jewish students being harassed and intimidated. We see in corporations Jews in business are being discriminated against. And, of course, now, particularly in sport and in entertainment, we see Jews really are up against it.
So, Gary, look, you look at Birmingham, the second major city in this country, seems to me, I'm going to say it, a few others will, looks like Jews are not welcome in Birmingham. That's the
way we feel.
That's my outside sentiment. What can we do to fix it? Let's imagine new government, different change of direction. How on earth do you begin to fix this problem?
Firstly, we stop with anti-Semitic provocations, such as the marches that we've been seeing for the last few years. We stop with the two-tier approach of police, judiciary and other people in authority regarding Jews. Jews feel they're very much treated as second-class citizens now, if not worse. And the way forward has got to be to see there's absolutely zero discrimination against Jews in all areas of public life in the UK.
And just, you look at Birmingham, you look at what we've seen in London, is there a sense that, look, if this country continues in this direction, I mean, I have lots of friends in the Jewish community, a lot of people say to me, if the UK keeps going in this direction, we're not going to stay.
That's right.
We're going to go somewhere else. Do you hear that as well?
Yes, certainly. And the people are talking about going to America, going to Israel. I've even heard a few people talk about going to Eastern Europe, Hungary, Poland, countries where there's less anti-Semitism now than there is in this country, which is quite surprising, comparing their respective pasts.
Well, I have to say, you know, Gary, deep down, I'm an optimist, and I say, please, can we try and fix this? Can we try and fix this at least before it continues to get worse and worse? Here's one thing that perhaps we might want to think about doing. Maybe we should start ending mass uncontrolled immigration. Maybe we should start being selective as to who we let into the country. And maybe we should start saying assimilation is required for people who are living in this country.
And this is one reason why there's a very interesting by-election took place a week ago in Hendon, which is a very Jewish area, where Reform UK did especially well, in an area which had been conservative for decades. And I do think there's also a political message that the support for the different political parties is being affected, certainly within the Jewish community, by this particular aspect.
Well, Gary, we will continue to watch all of that as it unfolds in British politics, of course, but let's hope we don't get any more of those scenes like the ones that we saw in Birmingham. Well, coming up after the show tonight, Patrick Christis Tonight is coming up next on your screens. Patrick, what have you got coming up on your show tonight?
Well, I'm joined by my live studio audience. Thank you very much, everybody. It is going to be an absolute bumper show tonight. Lots to go at. So it turns out an ITV presenter has been out saying that, you know, Sharia law's not that bad, is it? Which is quite interesting, especially considering they sacked Piers Morgan for not liking Meghan Markle. I thought, you know, anyway, apparently Sharia law's fine. Also, a slightly more serious topic, of course. I think we've let our veterans down, haven't we? I'm sure most people here will have seen that clip of that 100-year-old man saying that Britain wasn't worth fighting for. I've got that and much more with this lovely bunch of people. See you soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain will continue its journey eastwards overnight tonight. A little bit colder this evening in the west, but mist and fog likely for many rural areas. We've got low pressure in charge, swinging in frontal areas, which will bring some rain through the next couple of days, particularly through this evening across central areas. After a fairly bright day, it will turn much cloudier this evening across the north and east, with some drizzly rain likely overnight. Now, it'll clear up across western areas. That could allow some mist and fog to develop, but it will also allow the temperatures to fall away a little bit lower than they have done lately, down into the single figures, particularly across the far southwest of England, Wales and parts of Northern Ireland as well. Now, where the rain is still lingering tomorrow morning across northern areas of Scotland in particular, it will be a bit of a murky start to the day, so a bit of a different feel tomorrow morning compared to today. Some mist and fog around, particularly over the hills and across coastal areas too. Further south across parts of northern England, there will be some brighter spells, but still some mist and fog first thing, and it's across the south and west parts of Wales as well, but we'll see the best of the sunshine first thing on Saturday. That's not to say there won't be sunshine elsewhere throughout the weekend. Saturday is actually looking fairly dry and bright once that cloud does lift up after first thing. So plenty of sunshine to come. The cloud will come and go, but it will still feel fairly pleasant out there as the winds are relatively light, particularly across eastern areas of the country. So temperatures climbing to around 13, 14 or 15 degrees, a little bit cooler than it has been lately, but still fairly mild for the time of year. And that could allow, with clear skies, temperatures to fall away to allow a grass frost across the east on Sunday morning. But elsewhere, the next batch of wet weather across the west will arrive through Sunday, bringing some potentially quite spells of quite heavy rain. And that will likely become a little bit more widespread through Monday and Tuesday. And although there's a risk of frost overnight for some areas, it's staying mild by day. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win your entire Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me.